Okay.
Peace and love, and welcome to another RootMama chat. It's been a long time. We shouldn't have left you without a dope beat to step to. I'm sorry, I'm so lame, but I'm an Aaliyah fan. I'm a child of the 90s, and I'm so happy to be connected to my sister, Alika. I'm so happy to be connected with her, and I'm so proud of her for launching her new company. And tonight we are going to be talking about female fertility. We're going to be talking about womb health and womb wellness, but specifically we're going to be talking about fertility. Fertility is one of those issues that we want to avoid talking about until we are actually either ready to have a baby or already pregnant. And that's really not the best way to handle things. As women, we have all of the eggs that we are ever going to have in our entire life in our womb even in the womb of our mothers. We already have all of that. So from the time we are, in utero to the time that we deliver, all of that counts in terms of our fertility health. So it isn't something that we should put off until the last moment or just simply avoid because we are not actively trying to conceive a child. Fertility should be something that we take into account when we really build our lifestyles, especially for those who want to have children one day. So, Alika, let's just please introduce yourself and tell us about your company.
Hello, everyone. My name is Alika, and I am the owner of Chosen Womb Holistic Health, and my website is chosenwomb.com, and I primarily focus on women's health issues, such as lactation. I'm a certified lactation counselor and educator, primarily lactation, the childbearing years, and I'm also launching a product line very soon of tinctures as well as creams that will help women during their childbirth, as far as all the way to menopause, starting with fertility. I know typically they're all holistic. They're not any inorganic products. Everything is organic. Everything comes from the earth. So it's safe for people who are vegan, vegetarian, or if you're not. And that company was started this year, 2014, because I just saw a lot of women needing guidance, needing assistance, and not wanting to go the fertility specialist route or not knowing where to start. So I wanted to provide herbal remedies that heal naturally and that came from the earth.
That's wonderful. I love the name of your company. What inspired you to call it Chosen Womb? And if you could speak louder or pull yourself closer to your mic.
Okay. Chosen Womb, because I feel that every child is chosen for that specific mother. Mm-hmm. And so your womb issues or your womb health is really your responsibility. And it's also something that should be considered sacred. It should be considered very important to you. And so the word chosen really spoke to me, as it had a very positive connotation. And then of course the word womb, and I feel like it's one of the more, I guess, deeper words to speak about the women's reproductive, health system.
Awesome. Well, I mean, I know for me, and I figured we can just sort of informally talk about a few issues. There are so many things that I want to expound on more that I feel like we could dedicate an entire call or an entire series of educational classes towards any of these issues. But today I just wanted to just open up the subject of what does it mean to take care of our fertility specifically as Black women. It's been my perspective, and I would love to hear your thoughts on it, but it seems like there's a big majority of us who expect to suffer, sort of like this idea that suffering through our menstruation is just a way of life. And even having certain aches and pains and dysfunctions in the body is just just the way it is. I get debilitating cramps. There are people who endure that for 20 years, 10 years, 5 years. There are people who are extremely anemic because they're bleeding so heavily and they're malnutrition on the nutrition side. There are folks who are trying to conceive and can't get pregnant. There are women who are getting pregnant and aren't able to see the pregnancy to term for so many different reasons, hormonal reasons, issues with the cervix, fibroids that went undiagnosed for years and years. And there's just so many things that have been accepted as a part of life that are really unnecessary. It's really unnecessary suffering. The extreme mood swings, nausea, vomiting, constipation, fibroids so large that they, protrude, causing the stomach to protrude. Some women even looking pregnant because the fibroids are so large. But this has been accepted. And when you go to the doctor, I would say a good 98% of them are going to give you pain medication, offer hormone therapy, birth control as a form of hormone therapy. Did I say surgery? Surgery, laser, cutting, whatever. And so, but that is not, that's looking at things from a symptomatic point of view and attempting to treat the symptoms. But what you and I share with our ministries through our businesses, my business is RootMama Maternal Care, and I think what I've observed you doing through Chosen Womb is we are looking at fertility from a body systems point of perspective, not just treating the pain. Where is the pain coming from? Why? Because there's a million reasons why you could be having cramps. So I'm not going to give you hormones or just say that that's the reason if we backtrack and figure out what is causing you cramps. A lot of times it's dehydration. Women don't drink water. So,
right.
Anywho, I just want to get your perspective. When you're counseling with different women, what is their level of understanding of what their mens is even supposed to look like or feel like, be like?
That is part of why I even started my business, because there's very little knowledge about what, how menstruation is supposed to be. It's pretty much been accepted that it's supposed to be painful. When I explain to women, you don't have to be in pain monthly, they're appalled. Sometimes some of them think I'm joking. I've even had people think that I'm joking when I say that. And then, I've even had some women be like, oh, I wish I knew that information before I got the hysterectomy, before I've been taking birth control for 20 years, and now I have hormonal problems, things like that. Most women don't know when they ovulate.
Right. And I'll let you finish, but I want to bring that back up because that's a very important part. So continue on.
They don't know when they ovulate. They just accept it as I'm supposed to be this way. Some of it does come from the notion that we are cursed with our menstruation and cursed with the birth, and so it's supposed to hurt. So that's really one of the biggest, the thought around it. And so most women, because they think it's a curse, they automatically assume that there isn't a cause. There isn't a reason. There isn't a way to get rid of it because this is just how it's supposed to be. I'm supposed to be in pain every month. This is, how life is supposed to be. Some women, I tell them, hey, if you exercise, you may not have cramps. Sometimes I don't feel like doing that. I don't have time for that. That's a big problem. Also, a lot of women don't know that there are alternatives to commercial tampons and commercial pads, such as menstrual cups, or you can get something called a moon rag, which is like a handmade a natural pad that can be reused, or even using tampons that come from natural fibers that don't have any of the additives in them, and that can cause the cramps and can cause the pain because they're artificial things being introduced into the human body, and they're basically toxins being introduced into the human body that's causing the pain. And so it's more so I feel like it's a lack of knowledge, that you don't have to be in pain, and then that there are options. Secondly, that there are options of things you can do to not be in pain, such as working out, such as, like you said, dehydration, drinking more water, such as not using the tampons or the pads, things of that nature. And then also there can be an emotional element. If you are hurting emotionally, your womb may be telling you, and that your body's crying out for help. And most people who do Western medicine, and that's the only way that they know how, they don't look at it from an emotional perspective. They just think, I hurt, I need something to numb it, instead of why all of a sudden do I have these fibroids? And then also a lot of doctors don't tell women that fibroids come from excess estrogen, and so women don't really know about estrogen dominance and where it comes from. That it comes from you putting the relaxers, which come from animal placentas, which is obviously a placenta that has plenty of estrogen because it's where you give birth, that you're putting that on your scalp and it's being absorbed, especially when you have glands in your head to help you grow and regulate your hormone function.
Right.
Putting that in your head, or you're taking the birth control that's creating more estrogen in your system, or you're using plastic products that have BPA, which also create a hormone disruption in the human body. So if you don't know any of that, you're thinking, I'm permanent
I just ended up with fibroids. I don't know how this happened. I went to the doctor and they told me that the fibroid was the size of a grapefruit. And I just woke up with this fibroid. But I think what you're breaking down is, what kind of lifestyle are you living that would contribute to a fibroid having the ability to grow that large, or multiple fibroids, and before you know it, when they're small. And the interesting thing, what I noticed was, there were and I'm really nosy, so when I see the doctor palpating on me and stuff, I'm like, if I see one thing in their eye, I'm like, what did you see? What did you find? What are you feeling? Oh, it's just a cyst. Don't worry about it. Oh, I'm going into, I got to get this cyst out of my body mode. Right. I don't want this cyst to turn into a lump, to turn into a tumor, to turn into a cancer, to turn into a problem. So I think that a lot of times these fibroids are small and they're letting them go. Even if the woman is getting a pap smear and they may notice fibroids, there's a certain level of, it's benign, that Western medicine will accept. And what we know from the holistic perspective is a big fibroid started off as a small one. Right. Absolutely. And also, that's another part of my business, is I always tell all of my clients, be an active patient. Absolutely. Ask questions. If something doesn't sound right to you, they're using big medical jargon and you don't understand, don't be ashamed. They're doctors. They're using words they found, they got in medical school from a study they read. Most people don't know if you've never taken a medical terminology course. So explain to me what that means. Okay, well, what does that mean for me? Is there any way that I can prevent this? And I've also heard of women getting the fibroids removed, and then they're like, okay, and then they come back. And that's why I tell women, it's definitely a lifestyle thing. There's a reason why they come back. So there's an adjustment that needs to be made, a permanent adjustment, to actually get rid of them and to prevent them from coming back. Absolutely. And there's so many things that you mentioned, that I want to talk more about. Okay. And one of which is our womb being sort of a barometer of our health as women. It really tells the business, it really tells it all, are you healthy or not? You can pretty much see what your womb health is. If you have discharge, too much discharge, if it has a smell, if it has an odor, a color, the cramps, the heavy bleeding, the mood swings, the vomiting, the nausea, I always look at the 28 days prior to my mens will tell me how good I did that month. Was I drinking my water? Was I exercising? Was I taking my herbs? Was I meditating, and dancing and, moving and really allowing myself to flow? Or did I have a month that was a hot mess? Because that would pretty much determine if I'm smooth sailing or if I'm having issues. And by the grace of God, I've been doing good lately. Maybe it's because I'm continuously coaching and motivating other folks through it. I have to take my own medicine. I can't tell my clients to do this right and do that right. And then here I am, not drinking my water and drinking my herbs and doing what I need to do. So I've really stepped up my game, and I have benefited from that so much. I've benefited from that. But what do you see? What does a woman's womb, like the state of her womb, tell you about her as a whole, as emotionally, physically? What does it tell you? What are you looking for when you hear a woman tell you her womb story?
I want to hear if there's physical pain, is there excessive bleeding, is there a discharge, is there a smell, is, the PMS, which we shouldn't be having, is that if it's leading up to the period, if it's just horrible, if you have to skip days from school or work, those things basically tell me that either the physical activity, the diet, or both, or the emotional state, or all three, are not in alignment. I always tell women, your womb is your life force. This is how you give life. This is what it's for. For especially my clients who want to have children, and I can't have children. I have all these issues. There may be a reason for that, because a womb that has a lot of problems, it will shut down, and will not allow, you to conceive, because it's like, this woman has too much stress. I can't carry a baby. This woman, is so depressed all the time. I can't carry a baby, because your body is intuitive, and it knows it knows what it can handle and what it can't handle. And I mean, that's something that, a Western doctor won't tell you, is sometimes your body will shut down because of your emotional state. Also, the womb is, very, related to, the woman's expression of herself. So as far as her being her life force, it's also a part of her, who she is, her life. Is your life stagnant? Maybe that's why, you haven't had a period in a year. Is your life just, it's crazy. It's just a hot mess. Maybe that's why you're bleeding all through the month, and you just can't control, you're bleeding because you can't control what's going on the outside. So you have to look at your emotional state as well to see, if that's why you're having these issues, or look at, if you have something that came on, such as, maybe a fibroid, what was going on around that time, that may have made that fibroid come there. And I try to tell women that it's your womb screaming for help. It wants your attention.
I would say it's the whole body system speaking through the womb, crying
Absolutely.
for help.
Yeah.
Because you cannot hide what is happening with the rest of the body system, because the womb will tell the truth.
Yes, because monthly it has to renew itself, and if it is unable to, or if it's it's wreaking havoc in your life, it needs your attention, and it can be in several forms. I know for myself, most of my issues went away when I stopped eating the hormone infested meat. All of the problems stopped. It was shorter, it was lighter, and I actually have a video about that on my personal YouTube channel. It was lighter. I didn't have to worry about all of the issues leading up to it. So it tells a lot, but like I said, but as far as Western medicine, you just think it's just something to treat because this is just how it's supposed to be. Once women understand that that's not how it's supposed to be, it's not supposed to be painful, it's not supposed to cause you trouble, then I feel like they will take more personal responsibility and take a look at what can I do to prevent these problems, what can I do to handle the problems that I have right now.
Absolutely. And so I think really what we're trying to reiterate to the sisters who are watching is let's just talk about what is it supposed to look like. What is an ideal situation for a woman of childbearing age? What is her reproductive cycle in an ideal situation? How would you explain that? Because we've explained what is not normal. So let's paint a picture and present an idea of what we are striving for in terms of a healthy woman womb reproductive system.
Well, a healthy womb, healthy reproductive system typically has a regular cycle. It doesn't have to be the standard 28 days. It does vary from woman to woman. It can be as short as 24 days. It can go as long as about 35 to 38. It really depends on the person. 38 is a little bit long of a cycle. It should be of a bright red color. If it does have like a dark chocolate brown color, that can signify an issue, especially for the entire duration of the cycle. What else? It should be regular. It should be red. It should not cause major pain. There should not be spotting or bleeding during the cycle. That is abnormal.
So in other words, during the month before the mens actually comes, and by mens I mean period or menstruation, is mens. Before the mens, you're saying there shouldn't be intermittent bleeding before that.
Right.
Okay.
Right. During ovulation, it will kind of look like egg whites, which is normal. Heavy discharge is abnormal. So light discharge, clear to white, is normal, is expected as well.
So talk a little bit about that, because I know earlier you said a lot of women don't know what ovulation is or when they're ovulating. Can you explain ovulation in very basic terminology and what that looks and feels like, and why is it important that women are aware of this point of the cycle? Because a lot of times when I say cycle, they go straight for menstruation, but that entire, like you just explained, anywhere from 24 to 38 days, let's just say you have a 28-day cycle. That whole 28 days is the cycle, right? Not just the bleeding, menstruation part of it. So again, about ovulation, tell us what it looks like, what it feels like. Why is it important that women are aware of this point of the cycle?
Right. And so just finishing what you were saying, the cycle starts the day you start your period or your menses. That's when the cycle begins.
You start counting.
The last day, that's when you start counting. That is day 1. Day 27 will be the day before it starts, or 28, the day before it starts. Mm-hmm. Ovulation has stereotypically been said it's right smack dab in the middle of the cycle, but that depends on your cycle.
Absolutely.
It roughly happens between 12 to 16 days. Average is 14, but not everybody. 12 to 16 days before you start your next period. And that can vary. Ovulation, like I said, the discharge, it will look kind of like egg whites. If you were to touch it, it will stretch between your fingers. And you can have cramps sometimes, like a slight, it's not painful, a slight cramp or a slight sensation when you ovulate, but that's not always. One sign is increased sexual appetite of ovulation, because your body, it wants to get pregnant. That's what it says, okay, I want to get pregnant. So what happens is your egg is released from your ovary, and it travels through the fallopian tube into the endometrium lining, which is inside of your womb, inside of your cervix. And so it comes out, and it's the egg is there for 24 to 36 hours, and it waits for a sperm. It's ready to make a baby. It hangs out there. If a sperm
and
is
so
present,
during that time, your body is putting off pheromones and.
So you smell different?
Yeah, you smell different. Your body is sending out signals to males.
And your hips actually widen about.
They are. Your hips widen.
Yes.
Yes. And your body, your boobs are a little bit perkier. And your body's like, come and get it.
Right. So if the sperm does attach to the egg, it will attach to the lining of the uterus, which is the endometrium lining that I spoke of. If not, it will die off into the endometrium lining, and the endometrium lining will shed, which is what your
it will
period
absorb the egg, essentially. It will just absorb it and then get ready to release because it was not fertilized. But I think the things that you talked about between you and I, they may seem very commonplace, but these are very intricate, subtle, very intimate internal processes. And what I've known, because in addition to being a doula, I'm a dance teacher. I teach belly dance, which is all about being aware of what your body is doing, and yoga and meditation is about being quiet and knowing what your body is doing. So I noticed when I began to do meditation, there were so many things that I was aware of that I wasn't aware of before. So that little tinge of the egg releasing for the ovulation, I feel it now. I'm like, oh, and I can feel which side, which fallopian tube or which, ovary is releasing the egg. It alternates each month. I noticed that I smell different. I've always noticed the increase in appetite, but that's another story. But I've noticed even like sometimes I'm like, maybe I'm at the grocery store and then I see people kind of like lingering or, men just like like have their shopping cart right next to me. And I know, like, I'm like, oh, okay, now things are not happening in a disconnected manner. I understand that he probably on a biological level just is trying to be closer to me. So, but these are like things that they're easy to talk about, but for someone who, their shoulder is up here and they're walking around like this for a week and you're like, your shoulder's up, right? And they're like, it is? Like, yeah, like there's a disconnect from women and their bodies. So these subtle, intricate things that you explained about how do we know ovulation is happening? How do we flow, because once we know the cycle and we know our cycle as women, we can flow with it. We can flow with it. And as easy as a river flows and we as women flow with that, we notice that our cycles are much more, easygoing, relaxed. It can be a time of introspection, a time of how we organize our lives, a time of how we implement discipline. So many positive things can happen when we are aware of this flow. But I personally struggle with coaching women to body, you, consciousness together, body, mind, spirit, all of it as one, and understanding that. And I don't know if you have any success or feedback on that process, so that all of those intricate, subtle things that are happening internally for us as women are extremely powerful. But we have to tap into that power in order to really be, the women that we should be and to function at 100% capacity. We have to tap into that.
Right. Absolutely. And the importance of knowing is mainly whether you want to prevent or actually achieve conception.
It's taking our fertility in our hands.
Right. Instead of depending on, a birth control pill or a shot or an implant that may have, you might see a commercial later. Have you ever taken this? Instead of dealing with that, hey, I think it's time for me and my husband to make the baby we've been wanting to. Or, hey, I know I need to, tell my husband, hey, we're not trying to have a baby this year. We have, 4 over here right now. We're taking a break. That's one of the main reasons, but also it's to really, to cherish that time. That's beautiful that this is the time that your egg has been released. You can throw yourself an ovulation party. Or like you said, you can just be, just cognizant of how things change or how people respond to you when you're ovulating. So it's very, very important. I, personally know one of the easiest methods is to use the basal body temperature method. All you need is the thermometer. You take your temperature every morning before rising, and there will be a dip in temperature and then a big sharp increase in temperature when you've ovulated. That drop is the day that you actually ovulated, and then it will go up. And then when you actually menstruate, you'll see it decline if you're not pregnant. It will decline in temperature. If you are pregnant, it will stay very high in temperature, which explains why pregnant women are hot all the time. But your body has an increased temperature when you're actually when you have achieved conception.
So, and I think, we can keep talking about the whole cycle and what it looks like when it's healthy. But I think really important aspect that you brought up is that temperature. You would need to know what your baseline is to know about a spike or a decrease. So there's all kinds of really cool apps like Pink Pad and Track Your Period and whatever. I mean, I used to use just a calendar. And I love the calendar because the calendar was also a moon calendar. So I could see where I was in terms of the full moon, the new moon, etc. And that was really informative for me. Once it's been a few years now, but I was finally able to put two and two together, like, oh my God, the moon affects me as a woman, because it's pulling on those waters. So I would track, different things going on, moods and weight and temperature and all that kind of stuff. And so it's good to just be able to look back, years and see what's up, because one time I noticed it was like 28, 29, 30, 31. And then it would start over, 28, 29, 30, 31, 28, 29, 30, 31. And I would not have been able to catch that pattern had I not been tracking my meds for a long time.
Right. Yeah, and the longer you do it, of course, the more the more okay, this is normal for me. Or, in the event that you do, you're really stressed out and maybe your period is a few days late. If hey, when Alika is stressed, my period will be 3 or 4 days late. At least you know that instead of freaking out and then you run to the doctor or you call your mom. So it's mainly about being in touch with your health and not having to rely on someone else, because there have been plenty of cases where you go to a doctor or you go to someone who may not know what they're talking about, and they may give you advice or tell you something when ultimately this is your body and you're responsible for taking care of it and making sure that you run properly. Depending on someone else, for you as an individual, it may not always work out for the best.
So ovulation in a normal healthy cycle looks like a woman is feeling a heightened sense of sexual desire. She may be experiencing a discharge that's different from her discharge at other points of the menses, a discharge that's clear and slimy. And I think one of the reasons why is the cervical fluid will mimic that of the semen. It will basically, your body is thinking, okay, I need to create an environment that's hospitable to sperm, because normally when you're not ovulating, it's not hospitable at all to sperm on a pH balance level, on a temperature level, on a fluid level, on so many different levels. It's not hospitable. But during that window of time, your womb is, hosting and opening up and saying, yes, I'm preparing myself to accommodate sperm, and to help with that patch. So that's the importance of that fluid. And then also, she may notice a different, change in her smell or whatever. And so then let's say, she does not get pregnant. So what does the cycle continue to look like?
So at the point that you don't get pregnant, the egg says, okay, I'm not needed. And so it dies off into the endometrium lining. So the endometrium lining starts off very thin and it gets really, really thick. And when it's thick, it's waiting for that egg to implant into the lining.
Can you talk about what's in that lining and what is that lining for?
The lining is tons of nutrients. It's tissue, and it is there for the egg to implant in it and to embed in it, and then it grows and it becomes a part of the placenta and the womb and the sac where the baby lives. So it becomes the bag of waters and then amniotic fluid will grow inside of it, and it will house the baby, and also the placenta, which is the connection from mom to baby.
And so that lining is in the inside of the uterus.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And the uterus, yes, and the cervix is, you can actually feel your cervix. And I encourage women to do this, of course, with clean hands, or if you want to use gloves, that's fine. Because I feel that it is important for women to get in touch with their bodies. You can touch your cervix, and during ovulation, it does open up a little bit to help the sperm get in there. If you know,
and
if
normally it's closed. It opens up
right,
for
normally it's closed.
Ovulation, and it opens up for menstruation.
Right, so that the endometrium lining can come out at
Yes.
that point if it's for menstruation, and then for ovulation, of course, for that the sperm can get in. But once it will die. Well, if you do not achieve conception, it will like I said, the egg will die off, and the lining will get ready to shed. So at that point, after about 24 to 38 hours, if the egg has not been fertilized, the endometrium lining prepares to shed. And it takes roughly about 14 to 16 days. And so after ovulation, it will shed, and it will come out as your menstrual period. So that's why, women, when they see their period, like, okay, I'm not pregnant normally.
And so what happens with the PMS is, your body has a certain level of hormones to keep that lining, because the interesting thing about humans period, every single time a man bodies ejaculate, biologically it's thinking, I'm trying to impregnate, a woman. And every single time we release an egg and the egg travels down the fallopian, our body prepares every single month for a viable pregnancy. So that thick lining that's super nutrient rich is there for to nourish a child, to nourish that ovum and a fetus and a baby. So once that thick lining has developed and the egg is not fertilized, then your body's hormones have to switch to trigger to release the lining. So it's that drop and spike in hormones that can make us feel that PMS, the bloating. It can make us feel moody. It can make us feel depressed, because on a chemical level, things are happening internally. So what are your, what's your thoughts and your feedback on that that transition for those hormones and helping women cope with that change in a way that's healthy and productive?
My personal opinion is always to drink a lot of water, eat a lot of greens. Spirulina and chlorella are two of the main greens that I think are best. But if you're giving your body crap, it can't handle the hormone drop. Mm-hmm. And so then that's when you have a lot of the problems, a lot of the bloating, or the headaches, or, it's a myriad of PMS issues that women normally have. So if you give your body the nutrients to support itself, typically PMS can be very mild to non-existent in some cases. Also, what you eat prior to the actual cycle can determine how much you bleed. So if
Absolutely.
you eat a lot of things that have hormones in them, such as some of the meats or some of the dairies, or, like I said, if you're using bottles that are not BPA free, which is a hormone disruptor, you may bleed more. Like I said, once I switched to a mainly vegetarian diet, plant-based diet, I saw a big decrease in how much I bled on a monthly basis, which is a very common issue for women. They complain about how they bleed so much. I bleed so heavily. When honestly, literally within one cycle, I saw a difference because I changed what I was eating. I started to drink more water. Also with the bloating, a lot of salt will make you bloat because your body is retaining water because it didn't have enough in the first place. So salt dehydrates you as well. So if you're not drinking water and you're eating salty foods, your body's dehydrated. So it's holding on to as much water as it can because you're going through this hormone drop. You're about to lose probably a whole lot of blood if you've been eating crap all month. And so your body's just like, it's in like starvation. It's like freaking out. Like, what do I have to do so that, this woman, this human being doesn't, her body doesn't go into a shock. So that's mainly what happens during PMS, and that can be changed by diet. Also, exercising can help regulate the hormone. So if you exercise on a regular basis, that can keep those symptoms from occurring.
Absolutely. And I think what you're really saying really speaks to this whole idea that it's really, important to look at things from a body system perspective. If it's hormones that are triggering different things that happen with us in terms of our reproduction, then we would be really eating the things that you mentioned, the green foods that nourish the endocrine system, which is all of our hormonal balance. Because usually if a woman tells me she has a thyroid problem, I already know her ovulation is off. She doesn't have to tell me that. I already know she's maybe a high risk pregnancy, because if your thyroid is off, then that may lead to other hormonal systems that are off. So what we have to do is really nourish that from a holistic perspective to make sure those systems are working well. There's so many more things that I want to talk about, but I really think that a lot of this stuff is on a case by case basis, right? Depending on a woman, where she is, has she had children, has she not had children, her age, her location, and her spiritual beliefs, and all those things. So, when the women work with us, in terms of a holistic practitioner and a client base, their whole plan is basically geared around what their family needs and what her personal needs are. It's just important to me, and it means a lot for us to be able to offer this ministry to any woman that calls in because of what's going on with us as Black women in terms of our womb health, in terms of us taking charge of our fertility, getting pregnant, carrying those babies to term, having the birth experiences that we want, having our children meet their first birthday and beyond that. What we notice in terms of us, those of us who see the data, I think that people assume that the younger teen moms are the ones who have the worst birth outcomes, but it's actually our college-educated moms, 30-something moms, that have the worst birth outcomes. And actually, the more degrees you have, the worse the birth outcomes start to get worse and worse and worse, both maternal health indicators and infant health indicators. So I think that we can't leave it up to Department of Human Health, whatever, or WIC, or Catholic Charities, or Healthy Start to educate our people about what we need to do to take care of our wombs, because we don't know what those people's motives are. And whatever they're doing is ineffective. Maybe they're trying to be ineffective. I don't know. But I've seen all their literature. I've read their curriculums. I've read their brochures, and they have not, within the short amount of time that we've been conversing and ministering to our sisters, they have not covered any of these issues on a deep level. They're not looking at the Black woman as a whole. Where is her role in society? What is her role with her family? What are the stressors that she has? What is her womb health history? Who can take the time and really nurture and minister and fellowship and bond and have sisterhood from Black woman to Black woman, right?
Right.
So I just think that it's important that we take these first steps, because I believe in what we talked about today and what we'll go forth talking about. What we have the opportunity to do is to prevent those poor outcomes. to prevent
Right.
women losing babies and not making it to term and having complications because what happens is we're sick when we get pregnant. We were already sick. We were already sick. So yeah, we have preeclampsia. Yeah, we have hypertension. Yeah, we have gestational diabetes. Yes, we have hormonal problems that's not helping us get to term. Yes, we have a weak cervix, and why? All of the things that we just talked about have to be in order, right? In order to prevent all of those things to happen. So once we get our women to get all of that in order, we're going to have those big, fat, chunky, 40-week healthy babies, you know, and we're going to have women who, you know, transition right on into menopause with no drama and no problems, with her uterus intact, right?
Right.
So I just want you, you know, just leave it open to you before we close out to share any more words of wisdom to the sisterhood about this idea of we as Black women taking our fertility into our hands and nurturing our fertility.
I wanted to also note that there was actually a study done that I had the pleasure of looking over and studying while in school that was done. I'm not sure which college or which university had done it, but they wanted to find out why Black women had these horrible birth outcomes. And they compared women who, you know, are here in the United States, were born in the United States versus women who moved here from Africa. And the women who came over from Africa, they had these great birth outcomes. They moved over here and things changed. They had a similar experience to the women who had been here. And what they attributed to the conclusions of the study were social stresses. They contribute everything to social stresses. So I found that really, really interesting. And that's why I feel like that, you know, this dialogue is very, very important. But the main point that I definitely drive in my business and my life and when I'm driving here is that knowledge of your body and how it works is one of the most important things. I was fortunate enough to take a course on women's biology that, you know, every woman can't do, but I feel like it's my charge to share that information with other women. How do you figure out when you're ovulating? How do you prepare your body for a baby? What things, you know, that you're doing may hinder you from having a baby versus the things you can do to increase your chances of being able to get pregnant later in life, even if it's 5, 10, 15 years down the line. So really health education is really one of the biggest proponents because unfortunately, we can't depend on anyone else to get the information to us.
What I've noticed is there's not a lack of information sometimes. Sometimes it's, I know that if I eat fast food, it's going to make me ill. But I'm addicted to fast food, and so I can't stop. So what you bring to the table is being able to find out what is hindering that client from implementing information that she knows in her life because she knows it's going to benefit her and everybody around her. That's the disconnect.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Like you said, it's definitely on a client by client basis. And it can be several things. I'm addicted to fast food. I live in a food desert. I don't know where to get healthy food. There are a lot of different challenges, that women of color are facing, as far as dietary, even having access for a safe place to go work out. Everybody doesn't have that. So definitely definitely on a client by client basis, but, there are definitely ways, to live a healthy, lifestyle, so that you can achieve, womb health, that you can achieve a baby later in the line, so that you can keep your fertility intact and, you know, not have to go through, a lot of the issues that our mothers and grandmothers and great grandmothers have had to go through, due to, whether it be lack of knowledge or lack of access, or the many other things that, Black women are being plagued with now in this country, especially.
Absolutely. Can you share the contact information for Chosen Womb one more time for the viewers?
Sure. My website is chosenwomb.com, CHOSENWOMB, as in boy.com. And I can be emailed at heal, HEAL, @chosenwomb.com. I check my email religiously, so I'm always available.
Absolutely. And again, I'm Sister Freya Modani, and I am a doula and a breastfeeding educator and a dance instructor and herbalist with RootMama Maternal Care. You can reach me at www.rootmama.org. All the contact information is on there. So we are going to have more information like this. Maybe we'll have a class series, but I know there's a million and one things going on in my head in terms of things that I want to share with the sisterhood to really turn our health around and to really have us have beautiful, wonderful reproductive systems and to just really walk within our divinity and walk and flowing and living fulfilling lives. And a lot of that comes from what's going on with our fertility. So I thank everyone for participating, for listening and watching. And thank you so much, Sister Alika, for sharing with the sisters today.
Thank you.
All right. Peace and love.